Hey Internet, it's your old friend Dominic here with the All-American Casino Guide, a channel dedicated to providing you with all the tips, tricks, tutorials, and sometimes trivia you need to know about casinos and casino games, but more importantly, how to maximize your potential earnings. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe by pumping that big red button and ring-a-ding-ding-ing that notification bell so you'll be updated every single time we upload one of these fantastic videos to our channel. Today, we're going to be talking about factors to consider before folding during a game of poker. So what exactly is a fold? A fold is a player action where they have declared they no longer wish to take part in the hand. And this can happen at any point in time when a player has a turn to act in any particular round of betting. So to understand why or when you should fold, we must first understand our initial hand. So within the game of Texas Hold'em, every single player is dealt two face-down cards known as your hole cards pre-flop before any other cards are dealt to the community. There are approximately 169 unique combinations of starting hands, and obviously some hands are better than others. The best, of course, is a set of aces, pocket aces, sometimes referred to as bullets. These have an 85% chance of winning overall, while a deuce-seven is the absolute bottom where you have essentially very little chance of actually making anything. And even a pair of twos has around a 51% chance. So it's very important that you understand the mathematical probability that your hand has of winning pre-flop. In order to understand this, you might want to check out our video, Evaluating Your Starting Hands in Texas Hold'em, where I explain all these particular starting hands and give tips on when you should fold, raise, or re-raise. Make sure to check out that video if you haven't already. Don't mind, you can pause it right now, open a new tab, go check out the video, I'll be waiting for you. And of course, I also did a video which was the best and worst starting hands in Texas Hold'em, so you might want to check out that video while you're at it. So beyond the strength or weakness of your starting hand, another major factor that needs to be considered is what does money mean to you? In any tournament, poker game, or cash game, players typically use chips to denote different units of currency. But for players who are minted, meaning a particular player who happens to be independently wealthy, or just happen to have a large number of chips at the table because they've had a really good night, you can play a little bit more carefree and relaxed. Whereas if you are like myself and you live paycheck to paycheck and any money you do earn, your wife just takes anyway, you're probably gonna be a little stressed out in these high, tight, stressful moments. I personally recommend that you should never play beyond your means. Set a responsible budget. Hand selection is an essential part of winning hands, but so is money management. There's no real clear-cut answer as to how much money one should be willing to lose. That is a very personal question for you. So set a budget and act accordingly. The third factor I want to talk about is a little bit more situational, and this specifically comes up in tournament play, which is becoming a very popular variation on Texas Hold'em, where you might be playing just a regular cash game. Tournament play typically has a cash prize for first, second, third place, or even if it's a large enough tournament, all the way up to 10 or even 100 players. And depending on where you finish in the tournament determines how much you'll actually be paid out. So if you happen to be in a tournament that only pays the top 10 players, and the tournament has whittled itself down to 11 players, that means that you are currently on the bubble. And if you get knocked out of the tournament, you are entitled to no money. So you need to play a little bit more conservatively in situations where you just find yourself on the bubble, because you certainly don't want to be nixed out of the opportunity to actually see some cash. So as you get closer to the bubble, you probably want to fold more hands than you play in order to stay in the game as long as possible, especially if you happen to be short stacked. If you happen to be one of those lucky players who has a large stack of chips, then you can afford to play a little bit more loose. But remember, in tournament play, your chips are your life. And once you run out of them, you're out of the game. Another major factor, which really has nothing to do with mathematics, and it's pretty much the social skill part of this game, is understanding what kind of player you happen to be up against. It's important to ask yourself this question: what type of person am I playing poker against? Is this player wild and loose with all their hands, essentially calling everything, going into every single round of Texas Hold'em pre-flop just because they really want to see that flop? Are they the kind of person who will play a weak hand? Are they the kind of person who is short stacked right now and is playing hyper tight, hyper conservatively? If they happen to finally push in and make an action, you can bet that they actually have something. And you need to be a little bit more aware of the possibility that you aren't holding the best hand of the table. Try to have a general idea of a way a player is playing over the course of several hands. Keep this information relatively secret to yourself and just kind of keep a running total of what kind of player each player is. Another thing to be considerate of is body language and how a player is presenting themselves. We have a video on this channel where we talk about body language and certain actions a player might commit in order to show that they might be bluffing. Make sure you check out that video when you get a chance so you can get some clear-cut common factors that equate to a player actually bluffing. The last factor to consider is the odds. Now, as I said earlier, you're dealt 2 cards, and that's a clear indication of how strong your hand can be right off the bat. But as cards get dealt in the flop, turn, and river rounds, you have a constant mathematical process going on in your head, or at least you should, where you need to be calculating what the possible hands that you could have are. You need to calculate your potential outs. You need to think about what's the likelihood that that particular card might be dealt. You need to be considerate of how many players are still in the hand. You need to be considerate of a number of things. You also need to consider what possible hands your opponents could have, especially using the previous knowledge of understanding how they're betting and thinking, are they clearly delivering a message that they're holding a strong hand, or are they kind of limping in, showing the possibility that they're not really confident about their particular hand? So I provided a little bit of an example of one round of play for you where I went ahead and gave each player their respective hole cards. And obviously these cards would be face down to revealed only to the player that holds them. But for the sake of this demonstration, I went ahead and made them face up so you can see that I have, in fact, the ace and 8 of spades. Now, my decision to play this hand pre-flop would have been based purely on the fact that an ace is a rather high valued card. It's the highest ranked. And I happen to have 2 spades here, so they're on suit. Obviously, they're out of sequence, no straight possibility here, but I felt confidently enough about this hand to play it, and I decided that the blinds or whatever were of reasonable levels, and I didn't want to fold for one reason or another. So remember that cards come out in a order of 3 cards forming the flop, an additional card making the turn, and one final card being the river before both players reveal their hands in a showdown, if a showdown happens to actually occur. So one thing that would really have scared me out of this hand potentially is the fact that we have 3 hearts dealt immediately in the opening hand, the opening flop rather. So the possibility of a player having 2 hearts puts them in a flush territory. Even if they only have 1 heart, I would have had 2 cards yet to be dealt, and that would have been rather concerning. Now, I would have matched my 8 with my 8 of spades. This obviously puts me out of contention of having a flush draw myself, but at least I have a pair of 8s, which is mid-pair, and I have top kicker. This is a mid-pair top kicker situation, 8 being the middle, queen being the top, and 6 being the bottom. So ultimately, this is kind of a middle-of-the-road decision if you want to play it or not, and it's all going to be based on those other factors I've talked about. You know, the odds, this play style of the other player, how many chips you happen to have. So assuming I did play this hand out, then I find myself with 3 of a kind. All right, I get another 8. So this would be obviously a very exciting hand for me. I would be thinking to myself, man, look at me now. I have 3 8s. I have an ace and a queen kicker. That's a pretty good hand. But the reality is there's still that threat of that flush. And depending on how that player across from me is betting, I have to assume there is a distinct possibility they have it until I know that they don't. With each passing card, the likelihood of them having a flush diminishes. So when the last card comes up a 2, I would have definitely felt pretty confident that my 3/8 would be a relatively strong hand, and the only thing that I'm really worried about in this particular situation is the possibility of a player holding something better, like a flush, a full house, or a better 3 of a kind. Like if this person happened to have the 2 queens, that would have been another thing that I certainly would have been curious about, because obviously I don't have the queens, so they could have had them themselves. So this is ultimately a gut check, and you would think, yeah, you're in a good position, Dominic, but unfortunately, this player reveals that they had the 2 hearts the entire time, and in fact, they have a really high flush, and they were only remotely concerned that I was holding the ace of hearts that they didn't have earlier. So if your mathematical odds of winning are high, and everything that you're observing from your opponent indicates that they have a weaker hand than you, then you really should be less inclined to fold. However, inversely, if your mathematical chances are low, or your opponent happens to be portraying to you that they are a tight player, or that they have a very strong hand based on their bets, you really should get out of the hand as quick as possible. As the man himself, Kenny Rogers, once said, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, and know when to walk away. That concludes our list of 5 factors to consider before folding your hand. If you have any factors that you have ever considered, or things that you think I should make aware to the rest of the people on the channel, go ahead and leave them as a comment down below. And guys, while you're at it, clickety-clack this like button if you enjoyed this quick little brief tutorial, and punch that subscribe button if you haven't already, and ring-a-ding-ding that notification bell. It's the only way you'll be notified every single time we upload a video to the channel. My name's Dominic. This has been the All-American Casino Guide reminding you, play responsibly.